Business Takeout presents...
This is Ched Talks with Chedwick Crieghtney.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of Ched Talks. Ched Talks is again brought to you by Business Takeout. Business Takeout is a non-profit social enterprise that provides business education, resources such as blogs, podcasts, and events in the mission to increase Black wealth and empower our community. Ched Talks itself tries to include and uplift the Black community as well as from the male perspective. I'm welcoming tonight a fantastic guest. I think you will all love her. Her name is Rita Laurence Ngarambe. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes,
I'm
you
so
did.
happy to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
I have so much to ask. I have said before, I've never met someone so young with such a great attitude, vision, and such great perspective. I want you here. I'm going to ask you so many questions, and I'm hoping that the audience could just know and feel a little bit more about you as I have over the last little while.
Wow, I think those are big shoes to fill, but thank you so much for having me for this incredible opportunity and for what you're doing. It's inspiring. So I hope to learn so much from you in this conversation as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, we're going to just throw it and start right from the beginning, right?
Okay.
I want you to tell me a little bit about where you're from. Okay, first of all, tell me what the environment was like where you're from and how you grew up.
Okay, this is gonna be exciting. I grew up in Rwanda, so that's where I come from. It's a country in the east of Africa. We always fight with all the African countries saying that we are the heart of Africa. I don't know why nobody wants to believe it, but anyways, that's where I come from. And the environment was somewhat amazing, almost like a utopia. It's a world where the things that matter the most is not what you find in other places that seems to matter. So
right.
Money or power or cars or big houses, mansions, those are not things people run after. It's like there is this limited perspective and view of life, yet it's so rich in itself because you're not wishing for something more,
right.
you know. Because
Yeah.
they usually say that people get hungry once you taste food. But in this place, it's like there isn't that much hunger of things that are not necessary.
Right.
In summary, yeah.
Okay, so you grew up there, and what was life like? I mean, for you specifically, did you grow up in a wealthy family, an unwealthy family, mother, father? How was your life there?
So I was raised by my grandparents, so my grandmother and my grandfather, the parents of my father, and I didn't know my brother. So my father was supposedly my brother because I called my grandparents my mother and my father.
Right.
So he would come to visit sometimes once in a while because I was living abroad with this other family, a light-skinned woman with his wife. And the kids were also light-skinned and all civilized with shoes that had little lights on. I don't know, those shoes I always wished for. I think I'm going to buy myself a pair this sometime soon just so I can have them. But yeah, they will come with backpacks, all these amazing things that they had that I didn't have idea about. So I'll think of him as my brother who lives in the city.
Right.
And but there is this one person who helped take care of the cattle who told me, no, that's your father. And because he lived with my grandparents for so long, and it's been 20 years, and he would tell me these things, but I'm like, it's also the word, so I wouldn't believe him as much. But they were like, think of it, they're older people, how can they have you, and you're the youngest? So
right.
their last born was at least 10 years older than me.
Wow. Okay.
So I grew up with that, but I didn't care much. But every time they give me a whooping because I was the most troubling kid. Oh my God! Even I think I would hate myself. Oh my goodness, no! I lied. I would go to the shop to buy something. I would turn up 8 hours late, or go to buy salt and not come back. I was terrible, and also a tomboy. So I had the attitude of boys, but in the most worst ways. But yeah, so every time they would beat me up, I would think, oh my God, they hate me because I'm not their kid. So there is a thing that parents do. I don't know if even in Canada you do it, where if a child thinks you hate them, you're like, yeah, of course, we adopted you, we hate you. So like they would say that,
Right,
but like
okay.
it would stick a little bit stronger. And my other, like my uncle too, he would say, "Oh yeah, like you adopted, you didn't know that." And like,
Right.
but jokingly, but it would stick a little bit down.
Right.
So I would write down like some poetry notes, writing to my unknown parents, and like it was all these general things that I was going through, but I didn't know as they were happening that that's the kind of pain or happiness I had. So it was so confusing at the same time.
Right.
But otherwise, we're like well off, like one of the richest families within that community, just because most of my friends' families will come and go cultivate, like, or come and help clean
Right.
the houses for them to be able to eat, like pay them in a magnitude of like, let's say 1 pack of potatoes for them to go home after like a half a day. These things of paying per hour or having money per hour, that's, I don't know, I've never heard that. Like we get paid per month back home, so it's
Right.
all those things. And also still go back to with their kids, go
Right.
to school with their kids, and it's like I'm not better than them in any ways. Like I'm
Right.
still humbled at the end of the day, but those are things I look back to then. I'm like, wow, that's what I learned from this tuition and this and that.
Right.
But I was
so
happy.
let me ask you this. I know some people would look at it in a negative light. I mean, a lot of kids now who felt they were adopted. And so in this case, you said, some people were saying that, oh, yeah, you were adopted and all that. How did it feel? Because I know some people personally who their kids are afraid or parents are afraid to tell the kids that they were actually adopted because it's somehow the kids look at it as a negative. Kids in Canada particularly, it's very difficult for them to understand that they were adopted because they somehow look at it as if there was a failure there or someone didn't want them or for
I
whatever
actually
reason.
think this is like a breakthrough. I've never once in my life admitted that I was adopted just because it's my grandmother who raised
Right.
me. So it's normal, it's natural for parents to take in some of the kids, maybe because
Right.
they had when too many kids and
Right.
the grandparents have space or they need someone who will be helping them. Because
Right.
in the end of the day, I was the one running the little errands, cleaning up the place or cooking every time I got off school. So all those things, but I think it's my first time in my life admitting that, oh my God, yes, I was adopted.
Right.
And that's like my mother left me when I was like really young. I never got to know anyone from her side of the family
Right.
until when she passed away, and then I had to come to her funeral. So I had to meet my brothers there.
Right.
And all her entire family, her mother, her uncles, the whole entire family was
Right.
there, and also get to see her up close. But she was like lying there flat dead.
Right.
So that's the first time I saw my
What
eyes
was
on her.
that like? What would it be like to visit your mom for the first time and here she is laying dead? How did that feel? And then meeting a new family.
It's the most. People say there are people who give testimonies that they have died and came back to life. I feel
Right.
like that's what it was. It's like everything. In like 100% of every single thing, there is, it's like life and death, but that little thin line in it. Because I was the happiest. I'm like, oh my God, I get to see my brother, I get to see everyone.
Right.
But at the same time, there is this individual I'll never get to know how they look like from behind because I don't even know their height if they're stood up tall.
Right.
So it's like, oh my God, like, I'm losing my mother. I should be crying. So my tears of joy are coming out at the same time. My friends from school are right there. So I'm like, at least they got to see me outside school. Like, it's all these things, confusing emotions. Like even right now, when I try to play back, I cannot identify or tell this is the kind of like put a name to the feeling at all.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. So how did you come through that at the end? When you left and you kind of made peace with the fact that okay, she's dead, and then you met your other siblings. How'd that relationship
Okay,
materialize?
That happened in 2016, actually. So that was like at least a week before I moved to the United States. So
Okay.
growing up, like in primary school, most of the kids who finish school will either get married or like give birth to trillions of kids, and you don't have a husband because you're sleeping. Like we have different men around you, and that's the life they pursue or look forward to owning at least one goat, or because
Right.
cows are the most expensive thing. That's for
Right.
the richer families. So like so growing up in the element, I thought like that's what I had, like that's what I thought of, because I even right now I never had a map of where I want to be or have anyone ask me, what do you want to become? Yes,
Right.
we were going to school saying, hey, I want to be a president, like how every little kid says it in the movies.
Yeah.
But in reality, no one has a plan at all. None of the people we know have ever made it that far. Except like my aunties who went to study outside the country, or like in the city. But those are the most famous, the rich family that
Right.
everybody knows the name of.
Yeah.
But the regular community, the most population, the 99% of the population is people who everybody, you can see them. Oh yeah, the shop belongs to the person. Oh, I taught them in school. And it's the same teacher who has been there for 50 years.
Right.
It's like it's all those things. So to be able to shift the narrative and like get to see my mother there, and then a week later I get the news that I'm going to the United States, I'm like, okay. So it's all these changes that happen in an
Right.
instant. So I don't know how I feel about everything.
Yeah. Wow. That must, when you reflect and you think back, that's a tremendous journey, and it's something that's going, maybe years from now, or maybe just as you walk out of here, you may reflect and say, you know what? I have done a lot and I've achieved a lot. No wonder you seem years beyond in your wisdom. So, okay, so now how did you end up in Canada? How did you end up in Toronto?
Wow. So I moved to the United States, and then I finished my high school. My father was already living here, so he said, come to Canada. Like, I think it would be easier here. They actually settled down, because in the United States, like, we had the idea that it was just school. So
Right.
when he said, come here and settle down, like, I thought this of a home, a better home or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up here.
But you said your father's in Calgary,
Yes,
correct?
in Calgary.
And
yeah.
so you went to Calgary?
No,
with him?
no, I
you
never-
just came straight to Toronto?
Yeah, to Toronto, and then he came to visit and stuff. I think recently, actually, about a month ago, he moved to Toronto too.
Oh, he moved
Yeah.
to Toronto too. So you influenced him and brought him here
Yes,
and introduced him
absolutely.
around.
Yeah.
Oh, that is amazing.
Because I think, like, for him too, like, he's a little bit like, I think I get a little bit of him, so much of him in me. Like, we
Right.
look alike so much, but even like the way we see life, except like he has the broader understanding of it, or like tries to calm it down. Like, women, we give into emotions and guts, and
Right.
you chase your dreams no matter how much you want to risk it. But for him, it's like, I have family to look after, I have ABCD to meet, so he
Right.
doesn't get to be crazy as I am. But I think where he's at in his age, he's like, yeah, I think there is more to life than just making money.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. Very interesting in knowing that you're in Toronto, and and you're living. Where do you live in? Well, let's just. get
I
into that,
live
but
around
not
downtown.
too far. Yeah,
not
around
too
the
far.
downtown. But I mean, interesting where everybody's go and looking for so much material things that
Absolutely.
you have that perspective. How does that keep you grounded?
Oh God, it's hard because everybody around me says, "Oh, they want to," like, every student. Like, it's a thing. We even forget what we want in
Right.
the process, because you want to work 9 to 5. You don't even know if you like it. You don't even know if you're like, "Oh yeah, I need to have money. I
Right.
need to have a job." I'm like,
Right.
you need to have a job, or do you need to be okay and be happy? So like, we forget we want to do what everybody else is doing. So it's
Yeah.
hard to keep up with what I want to do, and
Right.
not or telling someone, hey, I didn't get to work 9 to 5 today, or I did only 2 things today. It feels
Right.
like lazy. Nobody understands that kind of journey. So
Right.
it is hard compared to what my peers are doing. It is hard
Right.
to decide your own path, which is not the popular path.
Right.
It is a tough one. but
Yeah, that
worth
must be
having.
extremely difficult. Yeah, I sometimes reflect back when I was younger and some of the things that I wanted, and it is very different than now. With you're being bombarded on a daily basis with material things and how you can, you can have this, and then people are, you go on social media and everyone is showcasing the highlights of their lives,
Yeah.
and it seems like this generation has a difficult time to try to, reconcile the difference between what someone's highlight of their life is and what their life is truly like.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as we always say, they don't know what their journey is, how difficult it has been, or how much further behind them they've come.
Right,
So
yeah.
the measuring stone is somewhat skewed, right? You think,
Yeah, I was
well, I
laughing at
should
my
have
friend,
that.
literally.
Yeah.
And like I was laughing at my friend when she worked like 7 days a week and she bought this new pair of shoes, and I'm like, you've been saying no to every single party you could have worn those shoes to.
Right.
So in the end, what are you accumulating those things to? Because the material things, it's like you accumulate all these things to say, yes, I bought this, I got this, I got that. But like you look back at life, you're like, I was never really present at all.
Right.
Now you
Yeah.
have all these things piled up, suffocating you in your room because you have so much clothes in your closet, or you have a huge TV that you don't even have a space to do yoga at or meditate.
Yeah.
And it's like you're doing it, you're putting so many things in your way of life, like
Right.
you are blocking yourself from living.
Yeah,
That's how I
But that's great perspective, because I often find that the younger generation is having a very difficult time with that. That they can't see, and sometimes it's frustrating for someone, to be able to talk to someone a little bit younger and say, hey, look, what is it that you truly want? Is it all this material things? Are you trapped in this orb of social media?
Yeah.
Are you living someone else's life? Are you actually enjoying it, or are you just seeing it through the lens of someone's camera?
God, I wish those questions can be projected in everybody's eye, because some
Yeah.
people don't know. The problem is, I don't know, someone said this, I forgot the author who said it, but it's like, there is no wrong answers, only the right questions. So
Right.
if you were to put those, it would be a huge eye-opening to so many.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your show. You said the Cypress Show is you're the host of, and what's the tell your audience tell our audience what the Cypress Show is about.
Okay, so the Cypress Show is interviewing. It's a platform that amplifies stories of women. So sort of like what you're doing. You're telling stories from a male perspective,
Right.
advocating for them, saying the things that matter to them, and also like not just taking this whole conclusion of what men are like, just to
Right.
get their individual stories, their own like milestones. So it's the same thing that I'm trying to do for women of color. So
Right.
not just particularly black women, just because I feel like if you connect with a woman, you're able to know the whole household story.
Right.
They'll tell you, yeah, my child did this, my husband did this, and
Right.
everybody, before you know, you have everybody's story. So it's my shortcut to success.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a great point. And the reason why I wanted to bring you on the show is not only because I found you extremely interesting, but I also wanted to see how the supporting roles, so men and women. So in my show, I'm trying to show it from the male's perspective, and a lot of the men that I've had on the show
Right.
tell things from their perspective. But we never talk about this supporting role, the person who uplifts them in the community.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that, this perspective can be shared. People can see, okay, this is how the men see it, this is how the women see it.
Right.
One of my shows, actually, I think I mentioned to you, I want to have where it's a call-in where women can actually call in and ask us men what your thoughts are on a particular subject, or if you have any questions, call in and ask it, and so we can be able to answer it. Rather than make assumptions of what
Yeah.
my thoughts are, you can actually ask a man.
Wow. So guys, you can start by commenting on these videos, or even his past like ask all the questions, and then you can pick from there. It would be
That's right.
amazing.
That's right.
Wow.
So from someone in the community where we're interviewing these women, what are you finding are the most interesting perspective as they see the men in their
Oh
lives?
God, it's that's a curious question, because like you realize that women take lightly their contribution to the male success, or to the male ego, or to the male just how they view themselves, self-respect as well, because there's like some men, like they have money, or you see he has a career, he has money and those things, and then they're like, oh yeah, he got everything he wanted, or
Right.
he can get any woman he wants. But really, like at the end of the day, there's always this saying that there's always an inner child that needs caring.
Right.
And those things, like seeing, even like growing up around my father, or even the women that I interview who have husbands, you know, say, yeah, my husband at the end of the day needs to come home and sit down and tell me, like complain about things,
Right.
not just to have this shield up all all the time, or to have, or just tell me, I don't know how to do this.
Right.
I can't figure this out. Like, what do you think I should do? Because like, just have that vulnerable moment where you can be okay not to know things, not to have answers, and just to be like, oh yeah, I felt sad because my shoe broke. That's something that if you look at a man, a full-grown man, like people would laugh and be like, what, you complaining about a shoe? Like, what? So now he has to walk around with something he's completely uncomfortable with. But that's because he's a man, he can't tell people. So I've I've seen most of the women, they say, yeah, my husband, like we talk, we've accomplished this together and that. And it's like, yes, he's the one on the front line. Yes, he's the one who gives him the money. But he needs to be alive for him to do that. And for him to be alive is for him to be happy with himself and to actually feel okay existing and being alive.
That's a great point. I often said that women, and this would be a nugget for women out there, right? I often said that women, if you truly want to know what, I can tell you what a man truly wants. And you just nailed it. It's intimacy.
Right.
It's called intimacy. So people automatically assume intimacy is just, in a sexual way. But the intimacy that men, real men are looking for is the ability to be able to be vulnerable. It's the ability to be able to have someone there at the end of the day to uplift them and to say that, you know what, I understand the battles that you've gone through and I appreciate you and I encourage you to continue to fight. And that kind of intimacy is something that's irreplaceable.
Absolutely.
and it's something that would help a relationship last forever. So it's interesting that you're able to share, and I'm certainly hoping that your audience take that and understand that the understanding of a man has to do more with the intimacy that he needs and asking him what he needs as opposed to making the assumption. What I've found is a lot of relationships, you will hear a woman say, I did this, I did the cleaning, I did this, I managed the kids, I did this. And he still didn't. Well, it's because you didn't find out what he truly wants.
Absolutely. It's like, even I think it's Dr. Phil who invited this sex specialist or something, and he's like, sex actually happens before it happens.
Right.
It's everything that leads to that moment. That's why rape is rape, and that's why sexual assault is sexual assault, because you have to, how someone feels towards you is what leads to that emotional feeling. So even when you talk about intimacy, instead of people just taking directly, it's like even like in marriages, I've met women who say, yeah, in my marriage, like I don't want to have sex with my husband. I don't feel attracted to him. But if if it was just body to body or just physical attraction, then you wouldn't be bad because he's right there. But if it's something that goes beyond that, like it's something that happened, oh my God, I'm attracted to this person, he's amazing. There are all these factors and unrecognized factors that lead to that moment.
Right.
So if people paid attention, like even the Christians who might be listening, it's the same relationship we get to have with God.
Right.
They gave me an example of two children where if one child is always doing what you want them to do, so let's say they clean up, they bring the food for you, they go to other appointments and everything, and then another child comes every morning, says, Dad, how are you? Do you want some water? Oh, can I sit beside you? Whose child, if you want to keep a secret, are you going to tell to first?
Right.
The one who is loyal to you by doing the things or the work done, or the one who comes actually cares to know how you walk up like. So it's the same thing, same philosophies I think apply to that as well.
Yeah, that applies to just about any relationship. I agree. So you amaze me. Like I said, if people know your age, I'm not in the business of advertising any woman's age, but someone as young as you to be able to have that insight and that interesting perspective had to have lived 1,000 years. Wow. So that's what I'm saying. You must be an old soul in some way, shape, or form. So tell me, okay, so obviously you have the show and you've met all these amazing women who've shared their journey and gone through so many things, whether it be hurt and pain and some of the euphoric moments of their lives, right? So do you have an interesting story of one of them that you can share tonight?
Oh God, let me see. So one of the ladies, which one? Like, there are so many of them. Because in every aspect, if like you realize the things that bombed their comfort zone are different. Like they want something that another person considered as light or as a small.
Right.
But like having come from Rwanda, a country that has faced genocide, I've met women. Like one woman was she was raped during the genocide, and she had a child, a mixed race, like a mixed child. So the child was by the perpetrator, by the person who killed her family. So now she's raising a child she's supposed to love, but that child is the father of someone who killed her family and someone who's raped her. So the child is like a product of rape. So like she's like just convicted between those two roles, and like as she's explaining, she's like, yeah, I gotta love my child and everything. But at the same time, this child, like every time they look at them, they see the image of everything that has happened to them. It's like, so how do you run away from your past if you're still walking with it? If you are still holding on arm to arm with it? So like you get to see that at some point in life, love is truly a decision.
Right.
Because you have to find beauty in the ugliest things of life. So, 100%. Like, to see her talk about her child, protect this child, it's like, I don't know, it's like if a snake, literally, that's how I feel, because they used to say that there's a serpent, so anyone who betrays you is a serpent. So it's like taking a serpent that has perpetrated all your family and then pet its child or its egg in your own home.
Right.
So to live with that and to know that there isn't something that someone can do to you that you can't forgive.
Right.
So I think that was the hugest epiphany. And also like having like an encounter with women who have been incarcerated, and then they tell you they're happy. Like there isn't, even if it's one day off work, you don't have a reason to be miserable. There are people who have been hidden without their concern away from the light, and they're still turned out to be happy beings who are doing amazing things within their communities, who are inspiring generations of women, who are empowering people. And these are people that have been kept in the hole.
So that's just a testament to how happiness or your mind is so powerful. Absolutely. That we can be enslaved physically, but emotionally, and that mental slavery is something that's self-inflicted.
Absolutely,
right? So you can there's been so many stories and examples throughout the years of people who have been physically incarcerated or enslaved, and yet their mind is so powerful and so strong. They're able to withstand it and come out happy.
Literally, because their prison is beyond the 4 rooms. There are some of us who have boundless. Like we're literally sitting on the field, but our lives are as closed in as sitting in a box, like this box right here, or in a small window. But there's someone who has 4 rooms, but they can accumulate and go past those rooms and be able to impact lives out there in a sense that, I don't know, like I believe in this sense, the power of thinking. Right. Even recently I've been practicing this. It's called I read the book called The Secret and the Power of Attraction. And I do that with little things where like if I think about something or if I vision something good enough and see all the details, I can make it happen the next 2 days. Or it happens for me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm practicing to do that not just in the little things but in the bigger things. Yeah. Because so many things that happened to my life where I was like, oh my God. I've seen people hang themselves for these reasons. I've seen people kill themselves or get depressed, or you turn into a comfort of drugs or any sort of thing to give you an ease out. Right. But I sat and like, not willingly, I'm not gonna give myself the whole credit, but I turned out okay. Like on the other side, okay. But I was on the edge, and I'm like, you know what? I think it is possible at the end of the day to walk around broken but in good pieces.
I agree 100%. Yeah, and I do practice some of that myself. You kind of visualize something beyond that you think is beyond your reach. Right. And the minute you start to put your focus towards it, you see it start to come towards you. But it's a little bit more than that. I think that happens when you start. You actually have to surrender to the universe. You got to believe in something bigger than you. Absolutely. And you got to because people think, it's just faith. No. Faith. It's not just faith. There's a little bit of a difference between
faith without action is something.
It's exactly. Yeah. So so faith, and you're sitting there hoping it's going to come to you. You have to start moving towards it, and you got to believe. that it can happen the minute you start to, and that's when it starts to happen for you. So I commend
And
you
also
for
it has
that.
to start with you knowing who you are. I think you mentioned this earlier before this conversation. Because you have to you can't be a priest and be hoping to see children show up.
Right.
So if you are an individual, like what you want is who you are in outside of you.
Right.
So the dreams you want to accomplish, which is I think is one of the problems with the young people are facing, it's you want things to happen for you that are not for you.
Right.
So it's like, what is it that you want authentically, not something you think you should have just or because someone else thinks, oh, you'll be good in this, or you would look. No, what is it that you behind the
truly
closed
want.
doors, what is it you truly want? And then that way it will come and it kind of clicks. It's like these like portable things that come and join together and like together. But it's if it's the like poles, then they repel, and like things attract. So it's in a way that you have to bring yourself to the table. It's you that you have to offer.
Right.
And then that way the universe listens to you and everything starts pulling towards in because you have exposed your magnet.
Right. Yeah.
that's
So your insight and your ability to articulate that is really powerful. Not only on your show, it can't be just on your show. I'm wondering, so tell the audience a little bit how they can get a hold of you and how they can view your show. Tell them your handles so they can.
So I am with Go Live TV Toronto, so you can download their app. They have a website, as well as those who will be listening from the East Africa country. The Rwandan TV, it's called. Why am I forgetting? It's Sangostar. They are all over in 126 countries, and they broadcast this show every Sunday in the church service program. So you can follow there, and I'm approachable. I have a website, thecypresshow.com, so you can message me. I'm up for always conversations. I like to stimulate how I see things, and I like to tap into how other people see things as well. And so I like to grow.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's been great conversation. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing next. What do you see in the future for Rita?
Oh my God.
Well, you talk a little about projecting, and you talk a little bit about the law of attraction. What is it that you want at this young age that you are, with so much insight and so much knowledge and the ability to focus? What is it that you came to Toronto, like I said, on your own, in what, 4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago.
4 years ago, and then so powerful that you invited your father as opposed to you going to him. So that is great. So
amazing.
and so tell me, okay, well, before we get to what you're going to do in the future, tell me a little bit about what the experience in Toronto has been like.
Oh God, so the Toronto experience has been, God is existing. Like literally everywhere I turn, God is there. Just to know that God could be in a place like this where people judge, it's the Western world, everything. There is what's sin everywhere and all those things, but to actually get to see God. Because I like to go to events. I think in 2018, I went to this underground rivalry. It's like by the Keepers of the Culture in Toronto, and it's they celebrate emancipation. So they have this train that comes from Union up to the Shepherd Station,
Right.
And they play the old Negro hymn songs. They do poetry. The whole train is full of Black people, and it's amazing. I mean, not even Black people, people of African descent.
Right.
So I got this one time, and these people, like the founder himself, sees me and he's like, I think you're going to be the queen of emancipation. We've never had a queen before, but I think you're going to, like, I want you to be the queen. You're crowned the queen. He didn't ask me. He didn't he didn't propose. He's like, you're going to be the queen. I was coming off the escalator in a train station.
Right.
And his entire group is behind him. It's the whole entire team, the organizing team. There's like over 400 people. The train is full. And I'm like, wow. So they say like ashe and greetings and blessings. So all these men with their children and the kids and wives, they're like ashe queen. Right. And I'm like, wow. And like, out of nowhere, like, and I'm like, so these are the things that happen in life. It's like, no matter who you are, you will meet your right people. No matter who you are, life will take you to places that you are supposed to be. And I feel like God's things are not meant to be forced. If you find yourself pushing things, because I always go back to the narrative of opening a door. If you open to the opposite side, it's never gonna be open. You gotta keep pushing until you break it. And if you break it, you're probably gonna hurt yourself or harm yourself, or you haven't
or something on the other side
right?
that you don't like.
Exactly. But like, if the things that come to you, embrace them sometimes, because something beautiful can come out of it.
Right.
So it's in that sense. And then in 2019, I went for this competition called Miss Face of Humanity Global. I passed to represent Rwanda. So you present a project, something that speaks to you, something that you want to advocate for, and then they out of your country. So now they pick if you pass.
Right.
So now I'm contesting to be Miss Face of Humanity Global, and I believe for the best in that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
So
So,
those are the two
so
things.
why did you choose? I mean, what did you choose? What did you speak about for your country? What are you passionate about?
So I have a non-for-profit organization called United for Humanity. And I did that out of frustration. As an immigrant, I was going through places. You go to a shelter, they tell you, sorry, we only look into housing. We don't help you with medical issues. You go to this other place, like, yeah, we help with medical issues, but we don't help you with clothing. It's all these things, like they have these particular stations that help, and understand that they need to have different focuses so they can be able to present 100% of whatever services they're offering.
Right.
But I was like, what if there was a place where people can come in, even if they're not able to offer you what you want, but they're able to say, okay, we'll help you find this. We'll help you do the research. So you are not actually alone. They're not pushing you out of the door to go find out things for yourself. So that was the organization that I created, and we do fundraising events. So I bring on poetry showcases, as I'm a poetry performer myself, and artists, and like all these individuals that can contribute their art to help also have conversation of the things that matter, and then provide solutions as well as help to the immediate help to the people who are in need.
Right. Yeah. So that's incredible that you're able to, in that 4 short years, that you're able to gone through the system and then create something that's going to help those that are coming after you. So that in itself speaks volume about the character and the will to be able to move forward and do things. And
for like immigrants, a certain job, like even for like immigrants here, because I did all those things up until 2019. I didn't have a work permit. I don't have any kind of documentation.
Right.
Like everywhere I went, I had this copy of my passport that said certified copy, and nobody would understand because it's just a printed paper.
Right.
So nobody wanted to see that in their faces. But there is a way to exist without having the actual qualification that human minds considers as being qualified for it.
Right.
I've been to places where people need to go to school and have master's degrees for them to be able to do those things.
Right.
But if you believe in yourself long enough, not even long enough, like if you say, you know what, I'm going to go for it, you'll be amazed how many people will have with open arms will be like, you know what, I like you already, come in. They don't even ask, do you have these papers? Do you have this experience? No.
Right.
It's like you go, if you believe, like, you got to offer yourself.
Yep.
And so, like, if I see, like, so many kids, like, yeah, I don't have papers, so I'm going to be depressed and sleep and go into drugs because that's the only thing I can afford without showing my ID. I want to go to clubs because that's where they don't need the experiences or, like, certificates of education, like, all those things. I say there is a way to exist outside the system, but in it as well.
Right. So a lot of people, and you're right, you did point out that there are a lot of people that are discontented with how things and how the rules and the regulations and how the law stays, right? Yeah. So they quit, they give up, and they choose another path.
Yeah.
Now, I don't always necessarily agree with everything in the law, but it's there for a reason, and it's not always going to be fair because it's done in the way that it's designed and the way it's designed.
Yeah.
So being persistent and clever enough to be able to find your way around it definitely is going to be a positive.
Because the law is a hammer on some things. Like there are things I can't do A, B, C, D, but there are things that the law does not limit you to do are the things you actually need to be doing.
Right.
Because the law does not say I can't have a conversation with someone and change their lives.
Right.
But the law says I can't go to work for money because I didn't have my work permit.
Right.
So, but I think because I don't have money, I can't have a productive conversation. I gotta be miserable. I gotta be rude to everybody. Like those are things that you decide for yourself.
For yourself.
So the law has nothing to do with your individual growth, your individual perspective. The law tells you, it keeps you safe. That's how I see it.
Right.
Keeps you safe, but also gives you this limitless ground for you to be a play field. So
Right.
for you to fall down, get back up, try, figure it out. Like it's like. If I locked you in a room and then you say you don't even want to look at yourself, you don't want to take off your clothes, so you're just gonna sit there and fold your arms.
Right.
But I'm like, no, you can touch your face and feel that your hair is your beard is growing.
Right.
You can touch your hands and feel like, oh, I feel cold. You can take off your shirt and say, oh, I'm getting a little bit of a belly. So those are things that you are in the room. Yes, you're not allowed to go out, but those are things you can do with that room.
Right, self-awareness.
You can work out. Exactly.
Yeah.
You can work on that. There is so many things, and
Yeah.
it's incredible how much you would learn in that.
So I guess that's what you would say to people that I wouldn't say quit, but they feel defeated if the system's not going the way they want, or if there are things that are just seem to be going not going for them at that moment. The best advice that I would give, and certainly the advice that I'm hearing you're sharing, is that stick with it.
Yeah.
Don't quit. There's always the path is somewhat designed for you, but you got to move towards it, and that's the message here tonight.
Absolutely.
So tell me now. I go back to my question: is what do you see for yourself a little bit down the road? Like, what's your projection?
Wow. So the little things. I want to be on a billboard. I gave myself last year, like in September, I was like, by the end of this year, I'm going to be on a billboard. But I haven't been yet. I want to be there just because, so when I was living in a shelter, I said, I want an apple in a fridge. And that's a simple thing, just so I can wake up in the middle of the night, go open my own, in the middle of the sleep, walk towards the fridge, open and take that apple out. And that's the thing I did as soon as I moved out. But it's not really just it's a symbol.
Right, it's a symbol.
Yeah, it's not just the apple, it's the freedom to be in my own house, to eat when I want to buy things. I don't know, just the whole freedom.
Right.
So even the billboard, I'm like, I have had seats, yes. I have had people listen to me, yes. But to see myself there, take up that space is a sign of something bigger. It's like I don't know, what do you call it? Significance.
Significance. Yeah.
Yes, of like some salt. It would be like, wow. It's like a wake up call to me. It's like, yeah, you've been seeing all this, but here it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's like a printed photograph.
Right. It's that achievement. It's
like an
it's not
award,
necessarily
right?
for validation, but it's bringing you to the point where you say, yeah, it's success. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want that, and then what else? I want to be able. Another thing I've been putting on my mind is to be able to host events, events that take all the kids in the shelters, as well as anyone from the people, the regular society, the kids who are out there, the young people who don't have 500 to pay for a ticket to go see the prime minister or to be in those rooms even.
Right.
To bring them, fill them 5,000, 10,000 people in one room, get to invite any president from a different country or anyone who is a tribalizer, and they can have conversation with these kids. Tell them that they matter. We see you. We don't just talk to the educated population. Right. We don't just talk to the corporates. We don't just talk to the business owners and the companies, so we want them to invest in the government. No, like you actually impact you, because in the end, those are the ones who make up the majority to me anyways. So I want to be able to host those events, and I want to be able to open an orphanage. Like, I don't know, I want to mother so many kids.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That is so incredible. And I thank you. This, it brings us to the end of our show, but there's so much more to learn about you, and I want to thank you so much again for appearing on my show tonight. It's been inspiring to see that the next generation, with people like you, we're in good hands. Yeah. So people that worry about millennials and so forth, we don't have to worry. There are people like you and others that are out there with a world of knowledge that are inspiring and that are moving in the right direction. Yeah. And I thank you again for appearing on my show tonight. And for those out there that are looking on tonight, I really want you to dig deep. I want you to, first of all, reach out, see what Rita is doing, follow her path. dig into yourself and find out how you can make a difference in someone's life and in the world. And I thank you again for joining me here tonight. And this ends our episode of Ched Talks.
Thank you. What can I say? Something at least before we go. I was going to say that thank you for this. I want to thank you so much. Not just for this moment, for everything that led to this moment. Because for those, the audience who will never get to know the behind the scenes, you got to know me through your son who hosted an amazing event. And that's just to say that you've raised an incredible generation as well. You've played a part in ensuring that tomorrow is better and the future generation is going to be great. We're looking toward the brighter future. So you've contributed to that. And not only did you just do that and then sit back, but you're making sure that you go with us. You're walking with us towards that path. So thank you to you and to so many other parents who are doing the same and who have done the same for the sacrifices that we will never get to know. But we know that we're standing on a stable ground just because you did. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Good night.
If you enjoy our programming and want to help support Black entrepreneurship, please donate today. www.businesstakeout.com/donate.